There is no face, personality type, or kind of child that tells you this child could become a school shooter, but researchers have found something much more useful. Before many school attacks, there were behaviors that other people could see, and sometimes people around the child already knew something was wrong. And that means the question parents should be asking isn't, could my child be a shooter? It's, what changes in my child should make me stop, pay attention, and get help? When people hear about a school shooting, we naturally want an explanation. We want to believe there was a certain type of child, the loner, the angry kid, the bullied kid, the kid with mental health problems, the kid obsessed with violence, but that kind of checklist can actually make us less safe. The Secret Service studied targeted school violence and found that attackers varied widely in age, gender, race, academic performance, and social characteristics. There was no single profile, and that's incredibly important for parents, because if you start looking for a stereotype, you can miss the child who actually needs attention. The better question is, what is this child doing? Not, what kind of child is this? One of the most important findings is that these attacks often weren't completely out of nowhere. The Secret Service's research found that attackers frequently displayed concerning behavior before the attack. And in more recent guidance, the agency emphasizes that threat assessment should focus on behavior because concerning behavior can provide opportunities for intervention. That doesn't mean every child who becomes angry, withdrawn, or rebellious is dangerous. Obviously not. Children go through difficult periods, they have bad days, they fall out with friends, they get angry at teachers, they fail classes. Those things by themselves don't tell you that a child is going to become violent. What matters is a pattern, an escalation, and the combination of several concerning behaviors. That's very different from seeing one red flag and deciding you've figured out your child. Another common thread is grievance. In the Secret Service's analysis, the most common motive involved a grievance with classmates, although attackers often had multiple motives, including conflicts involving staff, relationships, or other personal issues. Now, every child has grievances. Your child might say, my teacher hates me. Nobody likes me. They're all against me. That doesn't mean your child is dangerous, but if you start seeing a child becoming increasingly consumed by a grievance, if every conversation comes back to revenge, if they become fixated on humiliating or hurting someone, that's different. As a parent, you don't need to investigate your child like a detective. You need to become curious. Tell me what happened. What are you thinking about doing? How are you planning to handle this? Sometimes the safest thing a parent can do is give a child somewhere to put their anger before anger becomes identity. Here's one of the most important findings parents should know. In the Secret Service analysis of 67 disrupted school attack plots, in all but 4 cases, at least one person had encountered communications about the plan. That could be a threat, a message, a conversation, a post, something written down, or information shared with another person. And sometimes people dismissed it as a joke. This is sometimes called leakage, when someone communicates information about what they're thinking or planning before an act of violence. But here's the important part. Not every disturbing post is a threat, and not every threat means an attack will happen. So don't turn this into, my child posted something disturbing, therefore they're dangerous. Instead, ask, what exactly did they say? Who was it directed toward? Is there a pattern? Is the behavior escalating? Are there other concerning behaviors happening at the same time? Context matters. Another finding parents should pay attention to is an unusual or concerning interest in violence or weapons. In the Secret Service's analysis of targeted school violence, about half of the attackers had shown an unusual or concerning interest in violent topics or weapons. But this is where parents need nuance. A child playing a violent video game isn't evidence that they're going to commit violence. A child watching an action movie isn't evidence. A child being interested in history, weapons, or military topics isn't automatically a warning sign. The concern is when an interest in violence becomes unusual, escalating, personal, or connected to other concerning behavior. For example, if a child is increasingly talking about hurting specific people, making threats, showing an unusual fixation on violence, or combining those interests with planning or other warning behaviors, that's when you stop dismissing it as just a phase. Here's another uncomfortable finding. The Secret Service's newer school threat assessment material says that most attackers experience social stressors, and nearly all experience traumatic events at home. Most were also victims of bullying. But we have to be extremely careful with that information, because millions of children experience bullying, rejection, family stress, or trauma, and they do not become violent. So bullying isn't an explanation, and it certainly isn't a prediction. What it tells parents is something simpler. Pay attention when your child is struggling socially. Don't only intervene when the situation becomes dramatic. If your child is being excluded, humiliated, threatened, or increasingly isolated, ask about it. Help them process it. And if the situation is serious, involve the appropriate adults at school. Early support matters. There's another misconception we need to get rid of. People often hear about mental health symptoms in these cases and conclude mental illness causes school shootings. That's far too simplistic. The Secret Service found that many attackers had displayed psychological, behavioral, or developmental symptoms, but it also notes that mental health treatment should be viewed as one component of risk management, not as an explanation for targeted violence. So if your child is depressed, anxious, struggling emotionally, or asking for help, don't look at them as a potential threat. Look at them as a child who may need support. That's an important distinction. Mental health struggles deserve compassion. Concerning threats and behaviors deserve attention. Those are not the same thing. So what do you actually do with all of this? You don't interrogate your child, you don't secretly diagnose them, and you don't create a checklist and start labeling your child's personality. Instead, pay attention to change. Has your child suddenly become much more angry? Are they becoming increasingly obsessed with revenge? Are they making threats? Are they talking about hurting themselves or someone else? Are they showing unusual interest in violence or weapons alongside other concerning behaviors? Are they communicating things that make you genuinely worried? And perhaps most importantly, do other adults who know your child share your concern? Because the Secret Service model isn't about one parent spotting one magical warning sign. It's about people sharing information and taking concerning behavior seriously. So if you remember one thing from this video, let it be this. There is no school shooter type. You cannot look at a child and predict their future from their personality, appearance, popularity, grades, or mental health history. What we can do is pay attention to behavior. We can notice changes. We can listen when children tell us something is wrong. We can take threats seriously. And we can create enough trust that our children are more likely to tell us what is happening in their lives, including the parts they don't want us to know about. And that last part is especially important today, because your child's most concerning conversations may not be happening at the dinner table. They may be happening on a phone, in a private group, through disappearing messages, or in an online space you've never seen. And there's a very good chance your child has an online life you know very little about. In the next video, I'm going to show you what that hidden online world can look like, and the signs parents should be paying attention to. It's called The Secret Online Life Your Child May Never Tell You.